لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي جزا الله عنا محمدا ما هو أهله أما بعد. My dear respected brothers, elders and respected Najwans, wherever you may be watching this or listening to this video, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost keep you safe. If you are ill, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you shifa kamila. And if you are not ill, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and azza wa jal continue to keep you well. And I would like to, before I start the video, say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Before I go into explanation of this hadith and the Quran, first and foremost, I would like to point out that although our movements have been restricted and we are not able to get out of house, and we're seeing this as a challenge to us, what we really need to say and think, and if we really reflect on this incident, it is a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why it's a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is because we complain about time. We're always saying that we don't have time. I wish I had this much time. I wish I had this time. If I had this time, I would spend this much amount of time with my wife. I would spend this much amount of time with my husband, my son, my daughter, my children, my parents, my colleagues, my friends. But guess what right now? Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is given us an ability and opportunity to spend some time with our family. But unfortunately, this time that we are spending with our family has also brought about many challenges and issues for us, specifically and especially for the couples and married couples and who have children also on top. So what I wanted to point out today and what I wanted to discuss is some pointers and some issues both Islamically and non-Islamically to see how we can alleviate some of these pressures and some of these challenges. Because if you look into the news and articles, statistically speaking, a lot of demand is being placed on mental health services, mind, etc., age concern, and specifically police and domestic violence service providers, because being stuck with someone 24 hours can also bring about its challenges. You see, your routine, my routine, and typically routine of many of the people in the community is that typically people go out to work 9 to 5, some work in the evening, some work at night time. So during that time we also have our own free time, spouses have their free time, children are in school, and we have a routine in place. So and so does something at this time, I do so and so does. Sometimes if an argument takes place, what happens? We take ourselves away from that situation. Similarly, according to the hadith and Islam, is that if you are sitting down, stand up, or lie down. If you're standing, sit down. If you sit down, stand up. These are some of the recommendations in the hadith. But first and foremost, before I go into a bit more, let's talk about the ayat that I prayed. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that I have not created the human beings or the jinns or the human being but to worship me. But the question is, what does worship me mean in context? That is a real question. Worshipping of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is different to different people. Although universally it's similar, but different in different circumstances. And what I mean by that is, let me explain to you. Because you see, Islam is based on 5 foundations, 5 principles. Bunya al-Islam ala khamsin. And the hadith continues, and it covers salah, sawm, zakah, hajj, believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So effectively worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing that 5 things and doing it in the sense how Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam practiced Islam. So if I were to write this, for example, if we here see Muhammad, yeah, here. Allah. Okay? Okay. So the Quran is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling basically worship me. And how do you know the correct way of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically following the Quran. But how do you know what is the correct way of following the Quran? We have to look at the life story of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam followed Islam and followed Quran. Okay? Now the main point that I want to tell you is we have to understand our responsibilities. Because we have prayed La ilaha illallahu Muhammadur Rasulullah. When you pray La ilaha illallah, we believe that none worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We only worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then that becomes our responsibility. That becomes our responsibility. So when something becomes your responsibility, what do you have to do? You have to fulfill that responsibility. Fulfilling that responsibility is what worship means to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is categorized in two different sections. One is huququl ibad and huququllah. Huququllah is the 5 principles I talked about. 5 principles. And then huququl ibad is the rights of third party. And within that, third party. Okay? Third party. So rights of the third party. So depending on the person and his status or her status, the ibadah will change accordingly. What do I mean by that? For example, Ahmed. Ahmed is married. So if Ahmed is married, he has a responsibility of looking after his wife. He has a responsibility of looking after his parents. He has a responsibility of being a community member, as well as doing the spiritual, as well as all the 5 principles of salah, zakat, Sawm, Hajj, etc., etc. So his married life, his wife, parents, his brother, his sister. So depending on his condition, if he is single, etc., etc. So specifically for us, this video is targeting married couple, husband and wife. So if you are married and your husband and wife, you need to understand, or we need to understand, what is our rights, what is our responsibility, and what we need to do in order to make our marriage successful. Because you see, marriage is a sunnah, great sunnah of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Man raghiba an sunnati falaysa minni. Whoever does inkar of the sunnah, or who rejects the sunnah, he's not from a part of us. In another hadith it says that marriage is half of iman. So from that we can automatically and naturally deduce that marriage is not going to be easy. So if you look at it in your own household, right now we are spending 24 hours of our life with our spouses and our partners, and you see, past 20 years, past 30 years, past 40 years, past 50 years, we have lived our life in specific order, specific manner, specific style. So our habits have formed in certain ways. Right now, we are not living according to our habits of our life. When you are not living according to the habits of our life, what happens? It brings about changes. When changes happen, human beings cannot naturally adapt to changes. And that's when the difficulties arise. Because you are suddenly seeing your spouse, seeing your husband, seeing your wife 24 hours. You got the issue in terms of what do I do, how do I do, say something, etc., etc. And that brings about more challenges, and we start arguing, we start fighting, etc., etc. One of the greatest messages that I always say to people, don't react. Don't be a reactionary. Try to limit your actions and reactions to a certain extent that once your anger subsides or reduces or goes down, you can repair that relationship with your partner. So, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I did not create the jinns or the human being but to worship me. But that worship me, why do you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is to attain Jannah. Is to attain Jannah, where we will be living there forever and ever and ever. And one of the tasks that we have to do is follow the 5 principles of Islam: zakat, salah, Saum, Hajj, Kalima, and other things are looking after the third party needs of our parents, needs of our husband and wives, needs of our brothers, needs of our sisters, needs of the community, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. So here, we need to understand what is the need of husband, need of the wife. And this is where ilm and knowledge is essential for us. So what we need to do is, maybe this is a good time while we're at home, read a book on marriage. You could read brilliant books by Mufti Abdul Rahman Mangera Sahab. You could read Maulana Abdul Rahim Limbada Sahab, Mufti Abdul Rahman Mangera Sahab, and Maulana Bilal Sahab, Maulana Ahmad Ali Sahab, and these are great scholars, or Darul Bari scholars. And these scholars, you can learn the Mufti Meng Sahab. You could learn on the talks, because you cannot go physically to talks or speak to the ulama, speak to the scholars, and read books and read and watch YouTube videos and lectures and so forth. And you can do that. Alhamdulillah, we live in a modern advanced technology. We can get any resources at a touch of a fingertips at a very quick time. So understanding marriage life, understanding our rights for the husband. And unfortunately, this topic is so deep and we have so many things that needs to be covered, and we'll cover over a few segments. So in these segments, what I wanted to share with the key themes is remember, looking after your husband and looking after your wife is a huquq al-ibadah, and you're doing it for the sake of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes we get irritated with our brothers and sisters, with our husbands, with our parents. But that doesn't mean that we hate them. And that shouldn't be the case, because we have to respect and love when a person looks at his wife, or when a wife looks at her husband with a loving gaze, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at them with a loving gaze. So, and there's so many barakah and so many benefits and so many sawabs and so many things that we will discuss in the future segments. We need to change our perspective. You need to change our mindset. We are doing this, fulfilling our task as a Muslim, that La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, innamal a'malu binniyat, actions are according to our intentions. We are doing this, we are serving our husband, we are serving our wife, we are looking after our wife, we are looking after our husband, we are looking after children for the sake and pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then that way, when our partners are, unfortunately, due to the circumstances, are behaving in such a way that we find it quite intolerable at times and quite annoying at times, can be what? Can be let go. Because we have to exercise patience. Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is verily with the sabr karne walon ke saath, with the people who exercise patience. And I could talk about many steps in the next videos, but let me give you snippets. First and foremost, please, let's have a routine in place. Visualize routine in our house. Let's write of each other's qualities, things that we love about each other. Some of the things, amazing thing, when you're reflecting, you're also reflecting. You're also thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So write each other. Let's text each other. If you're annoyed with someone, you're not talking to each other, let's text message them, email them, write letters of love, etc., to each other. Let's leave a note under the pillow. And if you have your own bedroom, mashallah, and you should be having your own bedroom, let's keep a A4 piece of paper, and in there let's write all the good qualities of our partners. And inshallah, that will be a very powerful reminder why we are together. And let's not become a statistics, a number, where after this lockdown is over, that we end up divorcing and separating from each other or hurting each other. Let's not receive the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's use this moment, a great moment, to bond with each other, get to know each other. Let's rebuild the relationship again, and let's forgive each other. Let's pray salah together, let's pray jamaat together, let's do du'as together, let's eat together, let's bring sunnah in our lifestyle. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.